Well, hello, folks. Welcome to another episode of Whiskey Colin here. Hope you can hear me. It's Friday night, Labor Day weekend. We got 3 days ahead of us. R&R and RR&W. Rest, relaxation, whiskey. So, glad you could join me. Hope you got a drive yourself. Went to the liquor store and bought 4 new bottles today, actually. This is one of them, Laphroaig Triple Wood. And so they say this is aged in 3 different triple matured for peat, oak, and a subtle sweetness. They say here, I believe it's in aged first in former bourbon barrels, then in quarter casks, so smaller casks, and then final maturation comes in large European oak casks. The result is the perfect marriage of peat, oak, and subtle sherry sweetness. So you know what, sitting out by campfire here, I thought, you know what, you gotta have a peated whiskey, right? Obviously, I just tried another one, a Canadian Yukon whiskey called Brewers just before this, and maybe I'll try this first, and then maybe contrast that for you guys. So anyways, let's see what this one is like. Here we go. Oh, that was a good loud pork pop. Okay, let's see. It's got a healthy pour. Nice color here. Yeah. I don't know if this is. It does talk about this. This is non-chill filtered. I'm just seeing if it says anything about natural color or not. I don't see where or if it says that here on first look. But anyways, it's got a nice kind of I would say almost a coppery, rosy hue to it. Really nice color. Let's see what it smells like. You know what? I smell actually quite a bit of sweetness in it, actually. Like more sweet than peat in this smell. So that's kind of nice. That's kind of different. You know, Laphroaig, you kind of expect just the absolute boom, peat to hit you as soon as you smell it. This is definitely got a sweeter constitution.
Especially since it said triple wood, hey?
Yeah. Well, maybe it's what it's doing. It's 3 different kinds of casks. I don't think it has an age statement here. No, it does not have an age statement, so I don't know how long. But maybe the different woods, it's kind of bringing out a little more of an oakiness to it, maybe. For peat, oak, and subtle sweetness. So, and then it's ex-bourbon cask, which would be a little sweeter as well. So maybe that's cutting into the peat a little bit. But that's just the smell. Let's see what it tastes like. Okay, yeah, definitely interesting journey. This is 48% alcohol as well, I should mention. Is that what it says, 48? Yes, 48 on the nose. You know what? It's, just in my mind, I'm comparing to Laphroaig 10. Laphroaig 10 is very, very grassy. This is definitely got a sweetness to it. Kind of a muted sweetness. I can't quite place the... It's not really a honey. It's not really a brown sugary kind of bourbon sweetness. It's kind of a almost maybe a citrus sweetness, like a light jam or something. Maybe a light tangerine, maybe. Oh, the camera lady is gonna give it a shot.
Ooh.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. Yeah, so
It's got some heat.
Yeah, it's got some heat, got some spice, but not tons of peat.
It's not peaty. It's actually pretty
Not
good.
overly peaty at all, which for Laphroaig is interesting. But as it's just sit in the glass a little bit here, just opening up just a touch, I'm actually smelling a little bit more peat now than certainly when I just first cracked it. Yeah, a little more peat is coming out, but there's still that kind of almost a slight tangerine jam or kind of a citrusy, almost a not quite peach, but a peachiness to it, maybe nectarine, that kind of thing. And then there is some peat in there.
Mm-hmm.
But then there is some spice and some heat there. So I'm going to take a second sip and see what. But it's kind of an interesting journey. You get a little bit of sweetness, then the peat hits about mid sip. Then all of a sudden the spice and the kind of a bit of a burny out, finish kind of kick in. And the spice kind of takes over at the very end, and it's got a half decent finish in terms of kind of medium length finish to maybe a little longer than medium. But it's got a nice juxtaposition through the sip. You have about 4 different experiences from beginning to end.
Good. Yeah, you do. You taste it at the end. The peat.
You gotta say it's got a fairly balanced thing going on too, though. It's not absolutely overpowering in any one category. It's got a nice little warm finish. But yeah, I'm still getting that almost a tangerine thing coming back, and less peat than you'd expect from Laphroaig. That's for sure. Actually, quite muted peat. Probably the least peat I've ever tasted in any Laphroaig I've tasted. I think I've had the Laphroaig quarter cask, Laphroaig 10. This is fairly muted on that front. It's still got some decent spice. And for 48%, actually, it's fairly smooth, if you want to say, for 48%. It's not overbearing. It's subtle. 48% is pretty subtle. A pretty subtle dram, actually. This might be an interesting one to introduce to folks who maybe are a little scared of them being too peaty, but want a little bit of that. Just it might almost remind me a little bit of a Lagavulin, a little bit, where the peat is there, but it's a little understated. There's some sweetness. There's some balance. This is interesting. This is not what I expected at all. I didn't read up on this at all. But just from the other Laphroaigs I've tasted before, this is not what I expected. But kind of in a good way. It's kind of a very interesting, subtle, kind of balanced kind of dram. Okay, so we're gonna do something kind of interesting today. I'm gonna cleanse my palate, and then I'm gonna take another sip of this other Canadian Yukon single malt whiskey. So this one here it's called Two Brewers, and it's from the Yukon here, White Horse, Yukon here in Canada, and it's interesting. In 1997, it was a beer distiller or a brewing company, and then they kind of turned to whiskey. They say in 2009, and this is sort of their classic. They say this is their classic, one of the classic releases. And it says here, this dram provides a battle of the senses, prickling aromas, honeyed sweet malts, accentuated oak and spice, all a palate-teasing clash. So yeah, it's sort of interesting. It's non-chill filtered, no added coloring. So yeah, I'm gonna try that in comparison here. totally different whiskeys, of course. Yeah, it's interesting to try these. You know, I feel like these guys, I've heard of them. I think they have a pretty decent reputation, Two Brewers. First time I've tried anything of theirs at all, I think. But it's an interesting dram as well here. So let's smell what this one is like. I hope you guys have some drams yourself. It's a Friday night, long weekend. Why not, eh? Funny, now that I sipped this one, I had this one earlier, I almost smell strange. I almost smell a little bit of smokiness in this one right now. A honey smoke almost. So this one, I get almost a little bit of a you know, the one thing about this I was tasting before is just a little bit of a bitter tinniness, which sometimes I don't like all the time. There's a little bit of that going on in here, but it's got a really nice mellow honey, for lack of a better term, golden honey. I'm tasting almost a little bit of salt and smoke now in this, and it could just be because my palate's not cleansed perfectly from this, but kind of a strange comparison that we're doing here, but yeah, kind of a nice mild honey, a little bit of spice on the back end. This is funny. Yeah, so it kind of accentuates too that the sweetness in the Laphroaig was a little bit more of a tangerine to me, and the sweetness in this is definitely honey, a light honey. You have the sweetness in the Two Brewers. Definitely a light honey sweetness, I find, if you're going to sort of try to describe the sweetness aspect. So that's interesting. And there's definitely a little more peppery spice in the Two Brewers than the Laphroaig. The Laphroaig is a little more of an alcohol heat, you know, mixed with smoke, obviously, and mixed with the peat. You know, it's funny, you know, sipping these back and forth is quite delightful, actually. Very delightful. Actually, the contrast between the two, you know, I can really appreciate both of them, you know. A fly just went in my drink, too. Yeah. What do you do? What do you do? Anyways, folks, thanks for humoring, you know, an old man here drinking his whiskey. It was a long week, and it's going to be hopefully a longer weekend. And have a great time, everybody. See you again soon.